and welcome to the Scary Goals Club. I am your host, Hazel Robertson, and I believe that to make the impact that you know you are called to make in the world, it requires setting bigger, scarier goals and then becoming the person who creates them. That is what I am here to show you how to do. That's what we're diving into with mindset, tools, tricks, really simple, practical, actionable steps you can take and start applying straight away. Because whatever you believe, we have this one life that we definitely know about. Start making the impact you know you want to make in the world. Fear is not a reason to stop. We keep going. We work through the fear. That is what we do in the Scary Goals Club. So come on in, come join, hit subscribe, and let's get started.
Cute.
I know. Here we are. Okay, it's all worked. We're here. We're on some new software. And I'll do a little intro. Hi, and welcome to the Scary Goals Club podcast. I'm your host, Hazel Robertson, and I am here with the most amazing human, Aisha Stenning. And Aisha, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Hazel.
To be here. So good. So Aisha works to create a circular economy. She leads business action in the Plastics Initiative at the Ellen MacArthur Foundation. And that brings together key stakeholders to rethink and redesign the future of plastics, starting with packaging. Aisha was also one of my first ever clients when I was doing pro bono coaching and built this course that she did for 6 weeks, which it was so funny, Aisha. I found some of the videos from that like the other week. I was like, oh my goodness. I had this well, you'll remember, of course, but for anyone listening, I had this little whiteboard that I would scribble, I was holding it in my hand on my knee and was writing stuff up on it. And all of the videos, I'd written out word for word the script, and then I was reading out the script into the video, and then that was Aisha's homework to read it, watch the video every week. But I guess we all kind of start somewhere. I feel like we've known each other for ages, and that we have met in person, but we've never met in person, which is crazy. And we have a love of the mountains and sustainability and nature, and also, there's been the synchronicity of this podcast, which was, I was literally about to message Aisha to be I really want to have you on. And you text me that morning to be I have to let you know I've had two massive wins, which we will get on to. And so here you are. So thank you for coming on. It's so good. I can't wait to pull out all your amazing insights and wisdom. So yeah. So I'm up in Scotland. It's quite frosty. It's quite crisp out here. You're in England. You are in the countryside. What is a morning what was this morning like being in the countryside versus being in London, if you had previously been there? And we will dive into how you got here and all of that kind of fun stuff as well. But what's it like being in the countryside?
Yes, so it was also really frosty here. We have vaulted ceilings, so all the windows kind of face that way, so they were completely covered in frost. And so I open up the window and I get to see across the valley, so all of these trees, and it was really misty this morning, so it was really beautiful with all the frost. It's very quiet, which is lovely, and we're right next to a primary school, so there was lots of children messing around and just lovely noise. So yes, quiet but also full of life, I would say. The countryside, it feels like.
Oh, so good. And well, let's rewind back a little bit further. I was going to dive into that, but let's go even further back. And before we started working together, before coaching, what was different then? What was life like then in terms of I guess it's the reasons why you maybe decided to go for coaching, of what was different then about that version of Aisha, and maybe not having some of the tools that you have now? How was that different, if you can remember back?
Yeah, no, I can remember it really well. So because you'd messaged saying that you were looking to do coaching, and you were looking to set up a course to help people have better impact, be more productive. And it was just at a time where I was I've really got to get a grip on my procrastination. It is so bad. And I was just procrastinating way too much. And it's always been an issue for me. I'd always put things off and just sort of, jump into fantasy land of books or TV or what have you, or be like productively procrastinate and do really amazing things, but not the most important thing that I wanted to do. So I was doing a lot of that. So, I was already like a fairly successful person, a high functioning procrastinator, basically. But it was not, that comes with an awful lot of stress when you feel like you know that you're putting off the thing that you really should be doing. And so I was often getting quite stressed. I'd get what I call stress skins, like eczema and things like that around times where, either I've been putting things off and so it's been building up that way, or I've been putting things off and then you get this like intense moment of doing lots and lots of things because you have to. It's you've run out of time to procrastinate. So I was definitely in a lot of cycles of doing that. And so when you put that out, this was something that you could help with, I was like, yes, this feels so serendipity. I think I wrote like, it feels like serendipity. Like we need to talk. And so yeah, that's where we started.
And because one of the key things, obviously we're kind of talking about goals here, but really what underpins goals are just, it's like the dreams that we have that we want to create. And it's like what really underpins that is our time. So like how we are spending our time, like are we doing things that are moving where we want to go or not? And then our mindset, like are we holding ourselves back, or are we like, could we enable the behaviors that will help us actually take the action to create the goals? So what shifted like when you started being more intentional with your time and maybe shifting your mindset to, I guess, well, no, let's start with that. What happened like when you started being like a little bit more intentional with your time?
Yeah, I think I've had a really unhealthy relationship with time before. So I think I was always late. I'm not saying I'm perfect now by any stretch. If any of my friends listen to it, I'm still might be late, but I definitely am much better at I have a much better relationship and appreciation of time and realizing what like I really get to choose how to use my time, and when you're not thinking about it, that's still a choice of how you're using time. And so sort of realizing
So
that,
good.
yeah, it was a massive thing. And I think, yeah, and also just really realizing, having a better understanding of what I need. So like if I do this, that has a knock-on effect with this, and realizing, that you do need to rest, and if you don't build that in, you can't achieve so much. And I think, yeah, zooming out a lot more. I think I was much more kind of in that I was in a really reactive state, so I'd always just be doing what was like right in front of me, and what have you, rather than like looking ahead and really thinking about what I really wanted. So sort of taking that more zoomed out look to time, and I don't know, just like thinking about what life I really wanted to create, rather than just this just just life happening to me. Looking at time that way, being like, how do I really want to, I've only got so much time, like how do I really want to spend it? So yeah, I think getting that perspective was really, really helpful.
So good. And I love that thing that you said. It's like, even if you aren't thinking about it, like it is still a choice. It's still a decision of how you're spending it. It's just maybe your like unconscious beliefs or your past program, but whatever. It's like you're still making decisions and spending your time in some way. And it's like the more that you can make that conscious, be like, okay, what is it I actually want? And I know like one of the things that we then worked on, because it's almost like an element of, when it's like we're in the procrastination and the busyness and the overwhelm of it, it's like once we can get a handle on that, then it's like, okay, now what? Like, what do I actually want to create? It's almost like we free up energy and headspace to then be like, okay, I'm not just like, a duck, like frantically paddling my feet or like just keeping treading water. It's like, I've got like, I'm in the kind of flow place. It's like, okay, now what do I want to create? And I know that was so fun with you. And one of the things that we were looking at was this dream job, and actually how can you like create that within the job that you already had, and just playing around with like it wasn't within the job you already had, but we can get onto that within one of your fun results you created, which was a double promotion, which we will get onto. But first it was like, okay, what is like designing your dream job, and like what is that, and pulling out like who is that version of you, like when you are at your most creative, when you are at your most authentic green sparkiness self, and like actually starting to break away from the belief that a lot of us have, which is like work has to be hard. And if it's not hard, then it's not work. So can you talk a little bit more about that? Because that was,
Yeah,
I think
that
that would
was
be really helpful
such
for
a big
people
unlock for
listening.
me. I yeah, I just didn't realize that I did this, and I was always in jobs that weren't quite right, but I didn't know why. And I was perfectly competent at them, and doing doing well, and things like that. And but people always were surprised what I was doing, and or sort of being like, because I wasn't really leaning into what was so natural to me. So more of the kind of creative side, more of the engagement side, more of the people side. I was sort of in these roles that were leaning into kind of, they felt hard. And because they felt like
Mm.
hard, that felt like work. Another a big unlock with this was just realizing that I was really scared. Like, I just didn't realize how much fear I had, because I don't think of myself as a particularly fearful person. I'll be the first person to like jump off something into the water, or whatever. It's just not, it's just, I just don't, I just, it's not something that I really think about. And I just turned out like I just had all of this fear. I was really worried what other people would think, or worried of doing things that felt easy because that also felt wrong, or what if I did the thing, and the thing that comes naturally to me, and then it wasn't as good as I thought, or I didn't do as well. And I just had all of these sort of ambiguous, which is often when fear comes from. It's really it's really unknown and undefined, and you can't wrestle with it. It just feels really scary, so you just leave it alone. And so, the hard work, well, it was hard, but it was kind of straightforward work, so I could kind of get on with it, and do it. Whereas sort of, doing the more like creative stuff and all that, which you can see, like, even my voice, I'm like, I enjoy
I
it a lot
know your
more.
whole energies change. It's so fun.
um yeah, it was just amazing. It was like, oh, actually, no, other people find this really hard. So why am I doing the thing that I find really hard, which I don't get a huge amount of enjoyment from? Why don't I instead do the thing that I find really easy, gives me loads of energy, I love it, and it's super valuable? And I just wasn't treating it as work, because it was just fun. But actually, that's what people really remembered me for. That's what people kind of, when I lent into that, that's where suddenly people were like, oh, Aisha's great. And then I'd go and do all this other really hard work that people didn't care so much about. And then I flipped that at some point and started leaning into the stuff I really loved doing more, and sort of just let the other stuff go. And no one noticed. And everyone was just really happy that I was doing this other stuff. And yeah, that's where I got noticed. And, you know, things happen like double promotion and all that.
It's just so amazing because I think this is like a belief that so many of us, I mean, I've done work to unpick this, but it's like so many of us have, which is like you work hard and work should be hard. And it's like actually often that can mean, there's a difference between like working hard, like focusing on something, but actually just being like, ugh, and like work being a slog. And it's like the more that we can lean into, it's like, yeah, our natural gifts, which you were able to do. And people are like, suddenly you're energized and you're like bringing others along with you. And they see you at your most like authentic and your most, well, talk about the green spark energy and your sparkiest self. I don't know if you remember the phrasing that you put of like the kind of visual of the, I guess that you had for like when you were in almost that like flow creative state. I love that.
Yeah, so when I was at Unilever, we did something called a purpose workshop. It was a really good training, and they got you to think about sort of your purpose and link it to something that sort of, I don't know, is to do with that you relate to. So someone did it on sailing, another person did it on dancing, so they had it about ballet shoes and things. And then my one, I really love playing games. And so I linked it to games that I've grown up playing. So one's called Mahjong, and another one is called Racing Demon, which is a card game. And so my purpose was all about sort of, I realized my values that I have are joy, discovery, and care. Like, those are my kind of core values, which is something I realized subsequently. But my purpose is all around that. So it is, I'm a racing demon mother of mind expanding green dragons. Which is totally mad, but it means a lot to me, which is the
Yeah.
main thing. And it's just, when I'm like understanding when I get a perspective shift, either I've got a perspective shift and I'm able to help other people get that perspective shift, which is the kind of like the fostering, the mothering, the kind of, I used to call it driving, but I like mother better because it's got the care element. And then the green dragons are like are just those amazing things that you've just discovered and you feel like people just need to know. Yeah, either to help them in life or to help them in like a sustainable way or a company in a sustainable way or the world in that way. I think, yeah, it just really resonated with me on like multiple levels. And then, yeah, we also had the Unilever, there was this group called Bright Sparks. And so I sort of also like, and I've often, yeah, I'm quite a sparky person. So kind of green bright spark is like another way that I've kind of a smaller way of calling it opposed to my long mind expanding green dragons, things. So, yeah.
It's so good. And it's like, you can, like, even as you're explaining it, it's like, when you're in that. And like, is there anything that you do now or like that you can tap into that when you're in that like energy and you're in that like place? Like, is there anything you can do that can get you into feeling like that?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I do get a lot of energy from people and so from connecting with people. And so I, I, a, a really good way for me is just making sure that I regularly have conversations with people that bring that sort of out of me, because that's when I'm really my kind of like most like, yeah, green sparky self is when I'm connecting. Like with this call, you can see like
I know,
I'm
I
very
can just tell it's
energized and
so good.
yeah.
It's like I was saying to Aisha before when we got on, it's like even just her photo came up and it was just she's just like beaming in it and I was just immediately like was lifted and like smiled like before she'd even like her video had like come on. It was so good. It's just yeah, you like the sun literally like pours out of you. It's great. The
Yeah.
sparkiness.
But I do try and I do try and think more about like what's my intentions. So when I'm in a good practice of it, of like in the morning thinking about what do I really want to do today, and like how am I like living by my values? Like what care am I doing? What joy am I bringing? Like how am I what am I going to discover? Like how am I going to be in those states? And I find that that really helps me bring back to like that more playful side, that the more silly side, the more yeah, let's just see how this goes side, rather than the kind of more serious, because that's when I'm not being my in my flow state, is when my ego's been taking like in the driving seat, protection mode and things, and I'm and and I can feel it. And as soon as I do that, I try and stop now and just be like, whoa, okay, where where's this all coming from? And I don't know if you remember, I've got it here, my book that I wrote
My
myself.
one. The same brand. I love them. They're just so good. I've gone through so many.
It makes such a difference. So yeah, so it's a little book called How to Nourish Aisha, and it's got lots of learnings in it from you, Hazel, and all these things for when yeah, to help me remind myself about like yeah, how to get myself back into that kind of I think of the most kind of authentic version of Aisha, which is her green sparky self. So yeah.
I love that because it's so easy, like to slip out of that sometimes, or like we can set up habits, but things can happen that like tip us off, or suddenly it can be like a few moments or a few hours or a day's pass, and we're like the heaviness is there, and it's like whoa, okay, and to be able to have like just a really easy reference to go back to, actually having them written down, that's so powerful to just it's almost like such a lovely list to look at of like, ooh, which one like should I dive, which one did I need and feel like called to do right now.
Yeah.
I love that. That's so good. So good. And also like I think even just like that awareness of being able to catch yourself when you notice there's forcing or there's heaviness or there's something, it's like okay, this is like something's going on. And I love that the question that you asked of like coming at it with just that like compassion and curiosity of what's going on here, rather than like, oh, I shouldn't be feeling this way, like push, 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 which I know loads of us do and like can get into or maybe have done in the past, but being able to be like, okay, like what's like, let's just like take a pause and then just like shift your state and then kind of go back to being your flowiest, greeniest, sparkiest self. So
Yeah.
good. I love that.
And yeah, and I don't think that will ever go away in terms of, there'll always be times where you're kind of, well, where I'm being critical of myself or judgmental and and getting caught in those sort of loops. But I do think I think I'm much quicker at realizing it now. And so I can kind of,
Mm.
yeah, sort of break that cycle of kind of going in. So I don't tend to go in as deep and go in for as longer in terms of those sort of spirals because I'm much more aware now of that because I just didn't realize. I
Yeah,
didn't
we just
realize how
don't.
horribly I was talking to myself and like you say, like so much energy and time was just spent on that. And I just it was so unconscious. And then sort of bringing
Yeah.
that to the surface is, oh yeah, it's
Yeah. It is, and as you said, it's the energy piece. It's like the mental load of like the beating ourselves up, and then we feel worse, and then we beat ourselves up more because we're not doing something or whatever, and it just goes and it goes and goes. And it's like when we can just release that and like give ourselves a little pep talk or be like as you just did there. It's like kind or curious to ourselves. It's like okay, and then it dissipates, and then all of that energy just flows into like creativity and like moving forward and creating these amazing like dreams and impact and like that vision that you have for your life. And it's just it's so it's almost like shifting from this past where we can get stuck in like the dwelling or like the present and just being like okay, where am I going, and like redirecting ourselves to that. So good. And I do want to talk about this double promotion because like so fun. And like how I guess it's like the question is like how did you do it? But like was there, even coming back to that time, what were some of your like mindset things you were thinking about, or any like practices as you were going through that process of like kind of putting yourself forward for it, interviewing for it? Like what helped you, I guess, like step up into that? Because like people don't often really get double promotions. Like it's not just like a thing. So like talk, go back in time and like talk us through how that was going a little bit.
yeah. So I was working at Unilever and I was working on our plastic data at the time. So working in to help visualize the plastics data that we had in at Unilever at the time. And yeah, so what happened was my boss left, so we had a kind of a gap. So her remit was both the plastics and also the GHG waste and water, and so they needed someone to step into that role. And um, we were a slim team, so it's just us two, and then we also had this amazing team based in India who would help support and like we were who operationalized the data. And I mean, she was absolutely great, but partly because she was great and the way we were operating, it was such a kind of intense time with only a few, like two of us, that I guess you didn't really see what I did. I guess the team would have thought that she was doing a lot, and then when it didn't all fall apart when she left, and sort of I was then connecting directly with my director, it was like, oh, Aisha is doing all of this. She's very competent, and I think so. One, I think not realizing that it's really important to let it be known, like what you're doing. I think often we, well, particularly a lot of women can shy away from doing that. It doesn't come as naturally. I think we often just sort of expect, like at school, you do good work and it's rewarded. You don't have to kind of shout out about it. And often it's seen as sort of a very unflattering thing to be doing to make it be know what you've done. So I think one, I naturally had a bit more visibility there. And two, I'd had some great coaching from you, and I'd also been doing an agile coach course. So the two together made me realize how much prioritization is really important. And so when I was then, in this case where my boss left, she didn't have to work a very long notice period. So we just had this sort of gap. Someone did sort of step in half the time, but I was working a lot closer with my director. And because she was really busy, I was really busy, I would just be like, right, when I got time with her, I was very prioritized. Be like, right, these are the eight things that you need to do. These are in the order. We're going to go through each of them in this sort of next like hour. And then she would just be like, oh, wow, thank you. So I
Mm.
guess I made that person's job really easy, and I made the most out of time because I was really conscious of it. And it wasn't really, there wasn't time to kind of fanny around not doing stuff and be worried about how it might go, or what have you. It was very, I was just so like, right, this is the stuff that I really want to do and I want to get done. And so having that focus, I think, really helped, and sort of, yeah, getting that time with that person. I think that, I mean, those, and then a big part was when we talked about the, so we were looking at the sort of role and like what it could look like for me, and it was a real opportunity because I'd been in this job, but it was very much more like an internal focused role, quite operational, which is not where my like core skill set is. And then with going to this more senior role, it was like an opportunity to really step into that leadership role, to to get to work with lots of people, to do a lot more engagement, both internally and externally. Yes, get more creative. And so I didn't just apply to the role just to get to sort of just to be promoted, if that makes sense. I was wanting to like go into the role to actually look at it as an opportunity to get to do more of what I wanted to do, because I was like, I working with you, I realized there was so many I'd uncovered. I was like, oh, this is all the stuff that I love doing, and I saw an opportunity that I could actually create that sort of role. And so I wrote my dream role. I wrote it to you, I think, first.
It's so
Um,
fun.
and I was like, right, this is my dream role, and I sort of did it in, and then I was like, and this is how this dream role could translate into this, this sort of opportunity that this more senior role would happen. So, yeah, there was stuff in there about being like an earth custodian and like nurturing people and all of this stuff, and then how that would work as a senior manager at, yeah, in sustainability. And yeah, they loved it, clearly. They were like, oh great, Aisha's a safe pair of hands, but we can really see now like she is a senior person who can really prioritize, which is what we need. She can work really well with people, which is what we need. And yeah, and their reservation was actually that I, after I got the role, she was like, you know, you're a very collaborative leader, which is not normal. And I was like, wow. Like, for me, I just think that's crazy. But I can so see it. Like, a lot of people who get into leadership positions are not people who work that well with people. They're people who are very good at like just, you know, ordering and saying, right, this is my thing, and da da da. And obviously that can work really well because that divides work up fine, and people are kind of, I guess they're very strong with boundaries and things like that, and like I can see why that can be so appealing. But yeah, I found that really funny that would be a reservation. But thankfully I was able to show that actually can be, which, and she recognized that as well. She's like, that really can, it can be really powerful, but you have to be really aware of it because it's not that normal. Yeah, so I got to move into that role and kind of, yeah, start to shape it in the way that I wanted, which I just think people, you know, especially if you're kind of privileged and, you know, you've got all these opportunities, potentials, like why don't you shape it into a way that you will bring the best out of you? Because that's what people want. People want you to be doing an amazing job. Like,
So good.
it's so powerful in a business if you've got people doing amazing jobs all the time, especially if they're, you know, there's obviously there's limits. Like you can't just be like, I just want to throw parties all the time and things, which I would love to do
Yeah.
as well. But
Meetings could
as
be
long as
parties. It's like, way, we're all here.
as long as it's centered around core objectives.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Sustainability party. Woohoo. So good. And so fun. And I just love that, like, again, it's that intentionality. It's that, like, actually making the decision and being like, okay, what is it I actually want? What is this role? What could it be? And then just being like, okay, and I'm going to go and create that. I remember there was the other thing that you, like, again, because you were like creating what it is your dream job was, you were creating that in your mind and like imagining it and visualizing it. And it was like, it's my job. Like this, because you were creating it and it was like coming out of your mind, you were like, this is my job. This is like so suited to me because you'd built it in your mind that it was like, became then, I guess, easy to be like, oh yeah, I am the person for this. it wasn't like, oh, there's this opportunity and like, oh, could I, can I, can't I? It was like, oh no, I have like imagined this and like, this is my job. It was so amazing seeing you step into like your energy just completely shifted. It was like, this is my job. I am like an even more senior leader. This is how I am. And it was like, even before you were offered the job, like that was it's like you shifted your identity. You started like becoming the person as if it was already your job. And I guess part of that was like even what you were talking about when you were there speaking to the director, and it was like, okay, these are the things, da 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 da. It's like the priorities. Like just your energy completely shifted, just like how you were being and how you were showing up, because you'd made that decision like, oh, this is my dream job. I'm just like stepping into this, even before you had your double promotion. And it's like that, because I think oftentimes a lot of people when they're doing goal setting, they're like, oh, I'll achieve the goal, then I'll feel more confident. I'll achieve the goal, then I'll become a leader, or whatever the goal is. And it's like, no, it's actually the other way around. It's like there's the goal, and then you become that person who already has it before you've even done it. So like you were that leader before you were even offered that job. Like you stepped into that. It didn't happen after. And like that's also how you created it, because people saw that. They were like, oh wow, okay, it's got to be Aisha, like 100%. Like this is her. Like you were like then on at this level with that role. It was like, this is just who you are. So I thought that was like really fun as well, of like that identity shift that happened before you were even offered the job.
Yeah. I mean, this is, you could be talking about my latest promotion, Hazel. Like,
okay, talk me through that one then. I've got other questions in different orders, but like, let's talk about that. Okay, we'll stick on promotions. Like,
I mean, it's just the same story. It's just really funny as well. But basically, I moved from a program manager, so again, like a senior manager, to like a lead in November, so recently, and I had. I wasn't really gunning for it, sort of, like for like the last year or anything like that. It was just, I was very happy in my role. And then I just started to do more things that were more leadership orientated, because that's where I could just feel like that was where I was needed, and that's where I wanted to play. And because I was worried before, because I was like, oh, that's more responsibility. Is that what I really want right now? Do I want to take on? And I was like, no, I'm really happy where I am doing my thing right now. And then I just sort of naturally just started doing more, and I was naturally just taking on more of that responsibility, but it wasn't a scary thing. And at some point I realized, and I was like, hey, I should be a lead, because I'm already shifting into this space, and it's where again I can kind of create another role that is my dream role. Again, like the next evolution of my dream role is like, and really is that original dream role that I wrote, gosh, that was like 3-4 years ago. Like,
would have been 3 and a bit years ago.
So it's that role still, and it's just like an even better manifestation of it, basically. And it's just really funny, because exactly the same thing happened. I just started, my mindset just really shifted, opposed to being kind of scared of that responsibility and sort of holding myself back. I just started leaning into not holding Aisha back, and just giving things a go, being curious about how people responded to me, not scared about how they responded to me. And that was just, and then just keeping doing more and more things that I really liked. And then everyone was like, yes, this is, and I basically told, you'd love this as well, I told them that they needed me in this.
Yes, in this role. So good.
I was like, you need me in this role. And so, well, and I created it as well. I was like, we really need to have this, a lead role for this team. And then when,
oh my gosh, so you actually like dreamed up the whole like position as well. Oh my God, I love that so much. That is so good.
Yeah, so I'm really happy, and it's great. I get to lead a team. I love like working with people. I get to work with lots of senior people in big like organizations, and I feel like I'm going to have hopefully have loads of impact in sustainability. So it's very exciting.
Because I just love that, because I think there's often, I used to think this, I'm not saying that you did, but I think a lot of people do, that it's like I imagined almost like coming, I was like, I'll come out of uni and like someone will be like, this is for you. Or it was almost like imagining that someone was like coming to save me and be like, here's your dream job. And like, we've thought about you and you are the exact person for this. Or would like give these opportunities. And I can't remember when it was I realized that. Maybe it was like in my early 20s or something. It was like, oh, that literally doesn't happen. Maybe very rarely, or like you hear people get like, I don't know, maybe like I'm thinking like actors or models or whatever, it's like spotted or scouted, but it doesn't happen that so like very, very rarely is someone like, here you go, I've been thinking about you and I'm gonna give you this exact thing that is exactly what you want. It's like that is just doesn't happen. Like we have to decide what is it we want, what is it that like lights us up that is our dream, and make it happen. And sometimes that's selling it and being so sold on it ourselves that we're like, and knowing that it is the thing that our organization needs or like whatever it is. And we're like, by the way, guys, like we need this and I'm the person to do it. And it's like putting ourselves out there. Like no one's gonna, it's almost like no one's gonna come and save us, which can sound really like, but actually it's the best thing because it's like we get to decide and we create it. And when you can offer something to someone that you're like, I've thought about this is why, this is I'm the person, this solves all this. And they're like, oh my God, yes. It's like you're almost like giving to them what sometimes it's like we can wish what people would do to us. It's like, oh, this is exactly what I need like right now. So I like just love that you did that. It's like not waiting for the opportunity to come to you. It's like, oh no, I go and create that.
And I think the more you lean into it, the more the opportunity comes. It's not like I
Mm,
had to, it's not like I had to push very hard or, I didn't push at
yeah.
all. Like I really, it's really a case of just the more you lean into you, the more the thing that you're looking for finds its way of being created. It's quite mad. Like that's how it's happened every single time, rather than sort of me, you know, having to really slog
Mm,
and find it because it's that does happen when I am not clear about what I want to do and you're just hoping for that thing to land or whatever. But actually, when you really just lean into yourself and what have you, it's amazing how, because you just start putting yourself into the right places and you're doing the right things, and it just sort of naturally forms around you, I find.
that's so good. Even just building on that, like what do you think or believe about like now about your ability to create like whatever you want?
Yeah, I mean, I do feel like the world is, yeah, it's like limitless in like opportunity. I really feel that you know yeah, I don't know. So far everything that I've really set my heart on that hasn't had some kind of physical limitation, I really I really have been able to kind of, yeah, achieve in terms of goals and things like that. And I guess I haven't maybe gone for goals that are completely audacious. I don't know, like I want to be prime minister or something like that. I don't know, but still, they've been pretty big goals still,
Yeah.
and then I've manifested them in like a really relatively short amount of time as well. Um, so yeah, I do, and I feel like that's when I'm really in my flow state as well. Like I feel like that, you get that tingle of like anything is possible. It's just and almost it's like sometimes I can get overwhelmed by that because I'm like there's so many amazing things that I want to
Mm.
do. So it's making sure that you're well, okay, well there's so many amazing things, but really what is the most amazing thing that you really want to do? And then actually focusing. I think then if I really focus on it, then yeah, I find yeah, it's wild how much like how things just you can actually make things happen.
And even like, what is your, do you have almost like a process? Because obviously you've done this with a few different goals. We will dive into some of the others, which are really fun as well. But like, do you have a, yeah, is there like a process or certain practices or certain, you talked a little bit earlier about when you're forcing to kind of like shift your energetic state and like bring yourself back to more like you. But like, what else? Like, what would be your approach, or is there like some like threads that run through all of them that have been similar? Like what do you think that is?
Yeah, so I mean, this is something that you showed me, but I practice it regularly, which is to think about all of the goals you might have, and then really surface what's most important for you, and then focus on one or maybe like up to three goals at a time. And then with those goals, like I really like you got me to really visualize sort of completing that goal and what that would be really like, and then make that goal really specific and time bound. So, you know, if it's a goal, you make sure you're like, I will know this because of X at the X time. And I found that really helpful. So I had a goal of like this year, I wanted to know where I wanted to move to in the countryside. So I knew I wanted to move out of London and into the countryside. So I wanted to. My goal was to be set up so that I could move into the countryside by the end of the year. And then I was like, I'll know this because I have, you know, I think it was like I've been to this many places, and I've lived in, you know, I've tried places out. And then so I was trying to be really specific. And then and then once I had that goal, something that we also worked on was sort of taking a massive action every day. I was like, what? Every day,
I still remember
every
when
day.
I like did
Like
that
what?
challenge and you were
One
like,
a week?
you're like, I'm sorry, Hazel, I've actually got a lot of other things on. Like this is adding another thing in. I was like, is that true? Or is this your scared brain that's like, wait, I have too much. I can't possibly move forward with the things I really, really want to do. It's like, okay.
Yeah, it
So
was
good.
crazy. And so I remember being like, wow. Then actually, oh my God, it's like it's so empowering, like to think of something that sort of scares you to like and then break it down into some smaller steps, but they're still in your mind like massive actions. And so I remember there was this week where it was like, okay, I want to just try living somewhere. So we had Stroud on the list, and we'd only been there for like a couple of days, but I was like, right, I want to like live in Stroud for a month. And so I figured out when we could do that. And then and I was like, I ummed and ahed, and I was like, oof, I don't know, like I've heard trusted house sitters is a good thing where you can basically, you know, house sit for someone in return. You look after their pets, in return you get to stay there for free. And I hummed and ahed about it, and I was like, oh, you know, it costs a bit of money, and like I'm not sure, and what are the times to work out? And I can't, and I had a look, and I couldn't see any. And then I was like, no, this is a massive action. Like if I look at it, if I zoom out, it's £80. If I stay for just one weekend, I've like made that money back. It's really, and in the grand scheme of life, £80 to me, it's not going to be make a massive difference to me. So because I was doing massive actions, I just signed up to it, and then the next day, a place became available for exactly the time that we needed it for a month, which was really rare in the place that we needed it because there wasn't really anything. And thankfully, and these things go really quickly. So if I hadn't signed up, I would have literally missed that opportunity just because was taking massive actions. And then, so yeah, so how many? So yeah, so then we house sat there and we were like, this place is perfect. And so then I took another massive action, which was to rent in this area. So we moved in October, and we absolutely love it. And yeah, so it was amazing how actually by just taking some of those, doing it, really focusing on it, and doing something every day, even for a very short amount of time, I basically did my, because it could have taken me this has been in my head for 5 years. We wanted to move to the countryside, and I'd just been too scared to take any action. I was just like, oh, what if we don't find somewhere like a good community, or what if we go somewhere and we don't like it, or like it's not right, or you know, I had all of this sort of just very surface level fear, like I wasn't really going into the depths of anything. And then you were like, what is the worst case scenario? And then I was like, well, I'll go somewhere, and then I don't like it, and I'll have to move back. It's really not, it's not a terrible thing at all. Like this might still might not work out, but I'm not scared at all. It's absolutely fine, like, if it doesn't work out. especially because I've thought about it. I'm like, well, I'll just rent. So I haven't bought and invest a lot of money in it. I'm renting to try it out. So I think focus. So in terms of focus, making sure I'm really prioritized. Like, what is it that's really important for me right now? Making it really specific, and then breaking it down into massive actions, and then having a reflection mechanism to make sure that I'm really working on that, and I'm really thinking about that, and I'm really taking massive actions. So every week, me and my team meet on a Friday, and we talk about our epic wins and our epic fails of the
So
week.
good. Oh, I love that you bring fails in as well. That's so good.
Yeah, because I want us all to be trying and really pushing
Yeah.
ourselves and doing stuff and not having a shame culture, like a learning culture. Yeah, because I mean, this did all work out really well with this place, but there were some fails in terms of I didn't think about September was my busiest time at work, and we decided to do the second house sit in September. I just didn't think about my personal life, my work life. I just didn't think about that being, and it ended up being absolutely fine. We did find some because we basically were house sitting to find somewhere to rent, and it ended up happening really quickly, so it was fine. But you know, my partner was not that enamored by the idea that I might not be able to help, and so we had to, you know, then we had trouble there. We had to talk it out and stuff, but that was such a good learning for me. So I'm like, oh, now I really, when I'm doing these big things, I really need to look at my life holistically rather than just, you know, like, is that a time where I'm going to need to really focus on work and take more breaks and not have other stuff going on? Or if I do that, what do I really need at that time? Which is what we ended up doing. So he just, he cooked a lot of meals and stuff, which was really nice. So yeah.
It's so good. And it's like you said, even just like at the start of our chat, which was like with the intentional piece and the prioritization, it's like if I'm doing this, what am I not doing? It's like every decision and something you're putting your focus and energy on, there's like something you're not doing and trading off. And it's like kind of keeping that piece as well. That is, oh, it's so good. And even like, because I remember, and you chatted a bit about it there was a lot of the like the what ifs, it's like moving out of London, what if this, what if this, what if this, what if this, and it's very easy, like when we come up with what ifs, our brain goes to like all of the bad, terrible things that could happen. Like, did any of them materialize? Like even looking back, not that you have to go into specifics, but like, or actually has it been more straightforward than you thought? And even just within that, like what advice would you give to your, I guess, yourself 5 years ago that was thinking about it, or like anyone else who's like has this big grand dream for some part of their life, and there's all the what ifs of like, what if this, what if this, what if this? Like, what advice would you give to your past self or anyone
Yeah,
who's in
I
that
think
position?
it was incredibly straightforward, and we by really focusing on where we wanted to be, like the fact that we wanted to be somewhere, the the place then found us, and I think that we hadn't even heard of Stroud, and then I was talking about it, and I would talk about it with lots of people. I wanted to find out where they thought a place might be for us and things like that. And we'd looked at Frome, and we weren't, so we were going to visit Frome. My sister was like, oh, you should look at Stroud. Like, I know lots of people, and we were like, okay, we'll just visit on the way. And we didn't love the feel of Frome, and we felt quite downhearted. We were like, oh, we thought this would be really the place. And then went to Stroud, and we were like, oh my gosh, like this is the place. And so actually having it not be completely right straight away then helped us know what was right. So even if you do have those sort of things, so I think there's such, like, that feeling of having a dream, and you're in a safe space by not realizing that dream, right? Because there's still potential for the dream to actually happen. If you go after it, it might, and then, but it's a really uncomfortable and easy safe space because you know that you're not really going, you're not doing the thing that you should be doing. And then when you are doing the stuff that you should be doing, it's just, I mean, it's just the best feeling. You're being so intentional with your life. You're really, yeah, you're really sort of you really are doing what you should be doing, right? It's that sort of, and you just, yeah, it's just like, and I guess you know, it aligns so much with my values of like discovery and joy, because it's like I keep discovering new things about this place, and like that brings me so much joy.
Okay.
And so yeah, I guess to my past, I mean, it's just, you know, I would tell them like I completely understand why you're not going for things and why you're scared, but like really sit with that fear and understand it better. Like, where is it really coming from? What are you really scared of? And then it will, that will dissipate, and you'll realize that you can just go for things, and some amazing stuff will happen, and that all is, it's all worth it. So yeah.
So good. And how does it feel even right now thinking about like you're in like the place that you wanted to be living in that you didn't even know existed, and you have created like a job that's even closer to this like great dream job you've imagined. You also spent time working in the mountains and skiing. We haven't even talked about that. We're like towards the end of wrapping stuff up. Like there's so many. Like how does it feel now? Like thinking back over all of that and being like all of these things that were just dreams that you're like that would be amazing, and like you have created it. Like you are living this life that you were just visualizing. At one point it was this image in your mind, and now like this is what you do every day, and like you're in it.
Yeah.
Like how does it feel?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard not to feel like incredibly pleased. You basically feel like incredibly pleased with yourself, because you're like, wow, like I really have done this, and also I've done this like amidst so much adversity as well. Like my dad got really ill last year, and like all these other things, and still you can create all of, and actually having all of this and having these dreams and things make all of that stuff way easier to deal with, because you're still so purposeful, which is, yeah, it's just so nourishing for the soul. Yeah, no, I just, I was thinking when I got this sort of, when I got this role, and I'm like, I'm here in the, I feel like I'm in the right place, and I've kind of created all of this, and you do just feel incredibly empowered, which is, I think, a feeling that I realize I haven't had like enough of. Like I think a lot of, I think probably a lot of people can relate to that. Like I think we're, and you're like, wow, yeah, no, I can really affect change, like how I react to things, how I think about things. One of my favorite things that you taught me was around times where you don't have very good quality of thought. And I think that, yeah, you suddenly realize when you're having all these like these much better quality of thoughts, when you're reflecting on things. And yeah, no, I feel really, really proud of myself for doing all of this. Yeah, so much joy, so much excitement for the future as well. Because like, if I've managed to do all of this, like, what else? What else can I do? Like, what else can I achieve? And I don't think we spend enough time celebrating like what we have done. I think we often like move on to the next thing. And so, yeah, I'm trying to sort of cherish it all and stuff for where I am. And yeah, very joyful, Hazel.
Oh, it's so good. I could like feel that like coming out of you, because I remember when you messaged when we were like this, when I was about to message you about the podcast, and you know, it's like, how are you feeling? And you were like, I feel powerful. And I was like, oh, it's so good. Like, you know, it's like just, and it is the best feeling when not only have you like imagined and dreamed of something and created it, but like you've done it again and again and again, and not in a way that's like forcing and achieving, like I have to do this to be a good person. It's like, no, purely because it lights you up, and purely because you're like, this would be amazing, and this is really fun, and this is the like purest, best expression of myself, rather than like I have to prove something. It's just like such a different, like when it's coming from that place, and just see, oh, just so amazing. So it's so good. And I guess just like as we're wrapping it up, like firstly, thank you so much for coming on. Like literally, I have so many more questions. We could talk for hours. We'll have to do another one. We'll like check in, just like do it like an annual thing. But I guess, is there any like anything you want to leave, like wisdom for anyone else, or a lesson that you've maybe learned over the last couple of years? Like, if there's anything else that you want to share as just like a final piece? I mean, you've shared so many amazing nuggets, but if there's anything
Yeah,
else.
so perfect is boring.
Mm.
That is so important to like for me to inhabit. And it's like if you think of anything that is perfect, or anyone that sort of appears perfect, or like a story that is basically, you know, yes, I did this and I did that and then this happened. It's so boring.
Mm.
And no one, I mean, I'd hate if anyone ever thought of me as boring. That feels very like opposite to how I am. And like, but why am I often striving to basically be boring? And and so realizing that that is not what I want to be, that, I am enough, and that level of like what is good enough, like what's acceptable when it's not perfect and stuff. That's a really important thing that I feel like I've getting much better at, like understanding when I'm trying to perfect something. I'm spending, you know, like what does it really mean if I've achieved that perfection? Often when you have
Mm.
achieved perfection, you move on really quickly and you don't really care about it. So yes, perfect is boring is the last thing I would like to share.
So good. So good. I love that. Well, thank you so much for coming on. And this was just amazing. Thank you.
Oh, thank you for
And we'll
having
catch you
me.
next time. Bye.
Bye.
I'm going to try and hit stop recording. How do I stop? Stop. Hey, thanks so much for listening. If this was helpful, please hit subscribe and leave a review. This helps get this work in the hands of more purposeful people. That is, more people creating bigger, scarier goals, making an even bigger impact in the world. And if you want to take this work deeper and work with me directly, head to the show notes and I put all of the information there. If you've got any questions, or if there's anything you're like, ooh, I'd love you to talk about that on the pod, please just get in touch. I love hearing from you guys. And I'll see you next time in the Scary Goals Club.